imagine stepping out of this, like, high-stakes, meticulously organized machine. A machine where your role, your team, your exact purpose.
Right, your daily uniform.
Exactly, your uniform. Everything is clearly defined the moment you wake up. You know who you report to, you know who relies on you, and you completely understand the overarching mission.
Yeah, the structure is total.
It is. And then, suddenly, that machine just powers down. You turn in your gear, you drive off the base, and you are standing in what feels like an endless, empty field.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Someone hands you a completely blank piece of paper and basically says, all right, go figure out the rest of your life.
The psychological whiplash of that exact moment is just, it's profound. I mean, the phrase culture shock gets thrown around, but it really doesn't quite capture it.
No, it doesn't at all.
Because, culture shock implies you are just visiting a foreign country, and eventually you'll go home. But in this case, the foreign country is the civilian world.
Right.
And the home you knew, that military structure, is permanently in your rearview mirror. It leaves a lot of people feeling entirely untethered.
Untethered is the perfect word for it, because we usually talk about career transitions like they are just, I don't know, a matter of updating a resume, maybe buying a new suit.
Practicing interview questions, yeah.
Right. But for the veteran community, it is a complete rewiring of how you operate in the world. And that is exactly what we are exploring for you today in this deep dive.
Absolutely.
Because if you want to stay well-informed, you need to understand the big movements happening right now and how people are actually navigating these massive life pivots. So we are taking a deep dive into the underlying architecture of a major upcoming initiative designed to build a bridge across that empty field we just talked about.
It's a massive bridge, too.
It really is. We are looking at the foundational documents, the registration sources, and the comprehensive summit overview for Veterans Social 2026, or, as they call it, VETSOCIAL 26.
And the objective here is to parse out what this event actually achieves. Because, well, on paper, it sounds like just another conference. Yeah, just another Zoom call. Exactly. But the sources outline this highly structured, almost architectural ecosystem built to address that exact untethering we were just talking about.
Right. It's not just a virtual job fair.
No, not at all. We're looking at the specific mechanisms this summit uses to transition people, not just from a military job to a civilian job, but from a military identity to a civilian identity.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we really have to establish the timeline first. There is an actual ticking clock on this for anyone listening.
A very literal ticking clock on their website.
Yes. So today is April 11th, 2026. The summit itself goes live virtually later this year on September 9th and 10th. But the critical window, the date you really need to circle on your calendar, is July 4, 2026.
Independence Day. Fitting.
Very fitting. That is the hard deadline to claim free access, which, by the way, includes these exclusive speaker alumni badges. So the window to get in on the ground floor without paying a dime is, it's closing fast.
Which is clearly an intentional piece of the design. I mean, they are forcing a decision point early to build a committed cohort rather than just getting a last-minute passive audience.
That makes a lot of sense. So let's look at what that audience is actually stepping into. The summit is spearheaded by founder Ryan Patrick Hunt. And the stated mission is, well, it's ambitious.
Very ambitious.
They want to unite, amplify, and elevate the veteran community through empowerment, inspiration, education, and collaboration. And they are casting a really wide net here.
Yeah, they aren't just looking at people getting out next week.
Right. They are calling in still serving military members, veterans, military spouses, and advocates. They actually refer to this collective as builders, military influencers, and leaders.
What's fascinating here is the inclusion of active duty members and military spouses. That's what really elevates this beyond a standard veteran job fair.
How so?
Well, often, transition resources are only offered at the very end of a military career, like the final few months before separation.
Wow.
By inviting still-serving members, VETSOCIAL 26 is trying to shift the culture to prepare for the transition years in advance.
Oh, that's huge. Getting ahead of the crisis.
Exactly. And including spouses acknowledges a very harsh reality.
Yeah.
Military spouses undergo their own constant, brutal career transitions every single time a family is relocated.
That is a crucial point, and honestly is something that gets overlooked a lot. But I have to admit, when I first read the source material and saw that this entire sprawling ecosystem was entirely virtual,
You were skeptical?
I was very skeptical. Because we think about the outdated cliche of a veteran transition. It's usually walking around some depressing fluorescent lit job fair in a gymnasium, right?
Handing out paper resumes to people at folding tables.
Exactly. So making it virtual sounds incredibly modern, sure, but doesn't a digital format risk losing the actual human connection? Like, how do you replace the camaraderie of a physical military unit with a Zoom screen?
I get that. It seems counterintuitive until you look at the actual logistics of the military lifestyle.
Okay, lay it out for me.
Well, the military is inherently transient. You have people stationed in Okinawa, in Germany, in remote bases in the middle of the American desert.
Right.
If you hold a physical summit in, say, Chicago or Washington, D.C., you immediately exclude the vast majority of the people who actually need the resources.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
So the virtual format isn't a cost-cutting measure here. It is a democratizing feature.
So it is about removing geography entirely from the equation.
Exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter if you are a logistics officer deployed overseas or, a spouse trying to balance a household while your partner's on a submarine.
Right.
You have the exact same access to these 70-plus expert guides, mentors, and sponsors as someone sitting in a coffee shop in Manhattan.
That's incredible.
Yeah, they refer to it as a connected experience. It is an attempt to build this massive, open-world digital environment where geography is just no longer a barrier to community.
And when you look at the institutional backing they have, it becomes really clear they have the firepower to build that world.
Oh, absolutely. The sponsors are heavy hitters.
Yeah, we're talking Veterans Growing America, the Utah Veteran Business Resource Center, Roger Bank, the Rosie Network, Lean Synergy. I mean, this is a highly coordinated, well-funded ecosystem.
Definitely.
But even with all that backing, dropping an attendee into a digital lobby with over 70 different speakers sounds like a recipe for total paralysis.
Yeah, decision fatigue is real.
Exactly. How do they prevent people from just logging in, getting completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information, and just logging right back out?
Well, that is where the architectural structure of the event really comes into play. They haven't just thrown a bunch of random lectures onto a schedule.
So how is it organized?
The summit is divided into highly specific tactical playbooks. If you are an attendee, you are guided into concrete pathways based on your specific goal.
Okay.
The two primary tracks the sources focus on are the career track and the from service to ownership track.
Ah, so it is the ultimate fork in the road. Do you want to figure out how to climb the corporate ladder, or do you want to build your own empire?
Exactly. Let's examine the career track first, because the curriculum approaches employment from two distinct sides of the battlefield, which is really smart.
Two sides.
Yeah. On one side, you have highly specific, step-by-step schematics for the veteran. For example, Gennaro Washington from Koitech Solutions provides a session specifically titled From the Marine Corps to Cybersecurity, a Veteran's Blueprint for Transition.
You know, the word blueprint is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, and I think it is brilliant because it implies standard operating procedures. It is not just, hey, tech is a cool industry, maybe check it out.
No, it's highly tactical.
It is a tactical map showing you exactly where to step. But getting a veteran trained for a civilian job is really only half the problem, right? The other half is the civilian employer having absolutely no idea how to read a military resume.
That translation gap is where most transitions fail. Because a veteran might write on their resume that they were an E7 who managed a motor pool.
Oh.
To a civilian hiring manager, that sounds like, oh, you're a mechanic.
Right, fixing trucks.
Exactly. But in reality, that E7 was responsible for millions of dollars in highly specialized assets, managed the logistics and safety of dozens of personnel, and operated under extreme high-stakes pressure.
Which is an incredible corporate asset if it is translated correctly.
And that is why the other side of this career track focuses entirely on the employers.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. Michael Malinowski, he's the recruiting director at Lean Synergy Solutions. He hosts a session called The Pulse of the Process, Keeping Empathy at the Heart of the Hire.
I like that title.
It's great. It is designed to teach recruiters and hiring managers how to actually bridge that translation gap, how to look at a military resume with empathy, and understand the leadership and logistical equity that's just hidden behind all the military jargon.
So they're actively trying to fix the bridge from both ends. I love that.
Me too.
But, not everyone wants to breach the gates of corporate America. A lot of veterans leave a massive, rigid hierarchy specifically because they want autonomy.
They want to be their own boss.
Exactly. Which brings us to the service to ownership track.
This track is fascinating because it tackles a very specific psychological pain point for veterans, which is the feeling that you are starting over at zero.
Yeah.
Imagine spending 15 years building equity, rank, and deep respect in the military. You are a leader. People salute you.
Right?
Then you leave, and suddenly you feel like a 22-year-old recent college grad at the absolute bottom of the food chain.
That has to be just a devastating blow to the ego.
It is paralyzing for a lot of folks. So Davy Jones-Brown tackles this head-on with her session.
What's her focus?
She teaches veterans and federal leaders how to turn their accumulated experience into income, influence, and wealth specifically, and this is the key part, without starting over.
Without starting over, wow.
Yeah. It is about recognizing that your past experience is viable, leverageable equity in the civilian market.
And looking at the sources, they get very aggressive with the metrics in this track. Like Gregory Scott Henson leads a session called From Operator to Owner, How Veteran Entrepreneurs Scale to $100.
Which is very tangible, concrete number.
It is. They aren't talking about starting a little side hustle in your garage. They are talking about building a scalable enterprise. But honestly, I have to push back on this a bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
When I read through these sessions, scaling to $100 K, entirely pivoting into the complex world of cybersecurity, building wealth and influence.
It's intense.
It feels like a lot of pressure. A veteran steps out of a highly stressful combat deployment or an exhausting operational tempo, and they are immediately slammed with civilian hustle culture.
Right.
Is there a danger here of just replacing the burnout of military service with the burnout of aggressive entrepreneurship right out of the gate?
It is a very real danger, and hustle culture can be incredibly toxic if an individual hasn't properly processed their transition.
Yeah.
Because the military condition basically trains you to push yourself to the breaking point to accomplish the mission.
No matter what.
Right. If you apply that exact same mentality to a startup without any safeguards, you will absolutely crash and burn.
So do the organizers address that?
They seem to understand this vulnerability perfectly, which is why the full schedule provides significant scaffolding to catch people before they fall into that trap.
How so? Like, where is the safety net in the schedule?
It is in the foundational sessions that balance out the high-level ambition. They're showing you the peak of the mountain with the 100K scaling talks, sure.
Right.
But they're also handing you the basic survival gear.
Yeah.
You have Kyla Murray running a session purely focused on finding free business resources for veterans and spouses.
Oh, practical ground level stuff.
Exactly. And you have Rachel Miller from the PenFed Foundation detailing the foundational support for veteran and military spouse entrepreneurs.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
Yeah, they aren't just selling the end goal hype. They are providing the boring, steady, necessary groundwork required to actually build a business without destroying your mental health in the process.
That makes perfect sense. You have to have the tactical resources. But, even if you have the best cybersecurity blueprint or you know exactly where to find free government grants, none of that actually matters if the person executing the plan feels broken inside.
That is the absolute core of the issue. You can hand someone a perfect business strategy, but if their internal foundation is fractured by the loss of their military identity, they will not be able to execute it.
Right.
The military provides an unshakable sense of who you are. The loss of that identity is really the silent crisis of the veteran transition.
And this is where the VETSOCIAL 26 schedule takes a really fascinating turn, I think. A massive portion of this event has absolutely nothing to do with resumes or scaling revenue.
Nothing at all.
It is dedicated entirely to the internal psychological shift. To use a slightly nerdy analogy, if the career and ownership tracks are like updating your hardware.
Giving you new tools and income streams.
Right, giving you new job titles. Then these identity sessions are like updating your operating system.
I love that.
Because you can buy the most expensive high-tech hardware on the market, but if the operating system is glitching and crashing, the machine will not run.
The operating system analogy is perfect. The tactical sessions are the what and the how, but the mindset sessions are the who.
Exactly.
Look at Jacob Mousseau's session. The title alone is incredibly evocative. It's called The Way Home, Rebuilding Identity, Purpose, and Community After Military Service.
The way home. That is heavy. It implies that leaving the military leaves you feeling culturally homesick.
Yeah, it really does.
You voluntarily left the service, but you are homesick for a culture that fundamentally shaped your adult brain. That is a really complex concept to wrestle with.
It is. And then Daniel Lawton focuses on the next sequential step of that internal process with her talk, which is from service to self, how to rebuild confidence, visibility, and opportunity in your next chapter.
Notice the progression there.
Exactly. First, you have to find your way home and rebuild the internal identity. Only then can you rebuild the confidence to make yourself visible to the outside world again.
You absolutely need both the business blueprint and the mindset pivot, which, by the way, is literally the title of Dr. J.R. McIntyre's session, That Power of the Pivot.
That's such a great title.
But part of that pivot isn't just ignoring the past, right? It is figuring out how to carry it with you.
Oh, for sure.
Jasmine Rush hosts a session called From Service to Story, Turning Lived Experience into Impactful Content That Builds Legacy.
I was just looking at that one.
She is addressing how to take those intense, sometimes traumatic, sometimes profoundly beautiful military experiences and reframe them. Not just so you can process them internally, but so you can turn them into outward impact.
Which is a brilliant way to maintain a sense of purpose. In the military, your purpose is the mission and the people to your left and right.
Always.
Rush is basically teaching attendees how to synthesize their lived experience into a new mission, which is building a legacy that helps others.
Now, I want to focus on one session title in particular that I think is just a masterpiece of phrasing.
Oh, which one?
It is by Jeremy Montgomery, and it is called Transitioning with the Discipline of Genuine Curiosity.
Yes, that one stands out.
If you really think about the contrast in those words, discipline is rigid. It is military. It is structured and objective focused.
Highly objective focus.
But curiosity is fluid. It is open-ended. It is inherently vulnerable because it requires admitting you just don't know something.
It completely reframes the civilian experience.
Right.
Think about it. A soldier is trained to execute a specific objective.
Right.
If you drop them into a civilian networking event and say, hey, just mingle and be curious, it feels aimless.
It sounds terrifying, honestly.
It causes huge anxiety. But if you tell them to apply their military-grade discipline to the specific act of being curious, to treat curiosity as the new mission objective, it gives them a familiar framework to navigate an unfamiliar world.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Knowing that philosophical framework is great, sure, but practicing it in an isolated virtual environment seems, well, difficult.
Yeah, in practice, it's hard.
Because you cannot rebuild your operating system in a vacuum. We established earlier that geography is no longer a barrier, but staring at a screen in your living room is still inherently solitary.
It is.
So how do they actually combat the isolation?
By enforcing interactive collision.
Interactive collisions.
Yeah. The summit is not a passive video stream that you just watch like a television show. They have engineered specific live virtual networking events directly into the schedule.
Okay, give me an example.
Well, on September 9th, right after the morning keynotes, there's a dedicated lunch and networking block.
So everybody just eats sandwiches on camera?
Essentially, yes, but with a highly targeted purpose. That specific lunch block is hosted by Guy Timberlake.
Okay.
Earlier in the day, he gives a lecture on building a competitive moat in business. But during the lunch block, he is in the virtual room specifically to talk with attendees in real time about all things GovCon.
Government contracting.
Exactly. This is a massive avenue for veterans because they already understand government procurement and often hold active security clearances.
Right. They have a huge advantage there.
So you bring your own lunch to your desk, but you are actively conversing, asking questions, and networking with an industry leader.
So you are in the room actively participating in the conversation, not just consuming content on a screen.
Precisely. And they replicate this interactive model throughout the whole event. The next day, there is an in-leadership virtual meetup hosted by Andrea Singsawes from the Tyne Group.
Nice.
There is also a coffee meetup hosted by Shiro. They are forcing the attendees to practice that discipline of genuine curiosity in real time.
Putting the reps in.
Exactly. The core value of attending isn't just downloading a PDF on how to write a resume. It is surrounding yourself with people who, as the organizers put it, understand the mission.
Because when you are transitioning out, the people around you in your civilian hometown might love you deeply, but they don't necessarily understand the nuanced reality you just came from.
They can't, really.
No. So by forcing these interactive digital collisions, the event takes solitary screen time and turns it into a breathing community. It proves that you do not have to be physically located on the same base to feel like you belong to a unit.
You're finding a new unit.
Yes. Built out of entrepreneurs, advocates, and mentors from literally all over the world.
The registration page states it so plainly. It says, the next chapter is already in motion, and you don't have to build it alone.
That's a great line.
For a demographic that has spent their entire adult life relying on the person next to them to survive, hearing that they do not have to navigate the chaotic civilian business world in isolation is a deeply powerful message.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Let's synthesize this. If you are navigating the complex, often really disorienting transition from military service to civilian life,
Or if you're a military spouse trying to carve out a stable career amidst the chaos of constant relocations.
exactly, Veteran Social 2026 is presenting itself as a dual threat resource. You are getting the tactical, step-by-step business blueprints from experts who have successfully navigated the translation gap and scaled massive enterprises.
But you are also getting the psychological tools to rebuild your post-service operating system.
It is the hardware and the software delivered in an environment that democratizes access. It removes the friction of travel and geography so that you can plug directly into this veteran ecosystem, regardless of your current duty station or zip code.
But you have to take the first step. The machine isn't going to do it for you anymore.
No, it's not. Remember the timeline we discussed earlier. The actual virtual event goes live on September 9th and 10th of 2026.
But the critical window is open right now.
Yes, right now, to claim your free ticket, which secures your access and those exclusive speaker alumni badges. That free access window definitively closes on July 4th, 2026.
The countdown clock is actively ticking on their site.
It is. You do not want to let that deadline pass and miss the opportunity to get into this network from the ground floor.
The transition out of the military is inevitable for everyone who serves. The only variable is how prepared you are when it actually happens.
We want to leave you with a final thought to ponder today, pulling from that brilliant framework we unpacked earlier. Think back to that metaphor we started with, stepping out of the highly orchestrated military machine and finding yourself standing in that vast, empty field.
It is terrifying.
It is so disorienting. But what if you looked at that empty field not as a terrifying void, but as a completely blank canvas?
I like that.
What if you applied your hard-earned military-grade discipline to the simple, vulnerable act of being genuinely curious about your new surroundings? Could mastering the discipline of genuine curiosity about new industries, about your civilian neighbors, and ultimately about yourself, could that be the untapped secret to finally bridging the divide between who you were in uniform and who you are about to become? Keep that question with you as you navigate whatever new chapter you are facing today.